The chamber of the Galactic Council was larger than any stadium on Earth. The ceiling arched high above like the inside of a dark shell. Light from distant stars shone through a transparent dome, and a slow hologram of the galaxy turned in the air. At the center of the floor stood one human. Commander Elias Ward kept his hands behind his back. His uniform was dark blue. On his chest was a small patch of earth. He did not move much. He did not look nervous. Around him sat delegates from dozens of alien worlds. Some had smooth silver skin. Some had scales. Some floated in clear spheres filled with gas from their home planets. All of them watched him. This meeting was a cultural exchange. The Council wanted to understand Earth. They had studied human technology. They had studied human history. Now they wanted to study human biology. Above Elias, holograms of Earth appeared. Blue oceans, wide forests, dry deserts, white ice at the poles. Animals moved across the images. A great white shark cut through dark water. A tiger walked through tall grass. An eagle flew over a mountain cliff. The alien biologists leaned forward with interest. So many predators. One of them said, strong jaws, another noted. Sharp claws, venom, camouflage. Elias listened quietly. Then a tall Valkyrie scholar rose from its seat. Its skin gave off a soft green glow. Commander Ward, it said in a calm voice, which life form dominates your world as apex predator? The question sounded simple. It was asked with honest curiosity. Several council members expected the shark to grow larger in the hologram. Others expected a giant land beast to appear. Some waited for dramatic music or a proud speech. Elias did not answer right away. He looked up at the image of Earth. The oceans, the forests, the cities glowing at night. He felt the weight of the question. Then he smiled. Slowly, he raised one hand and pointed at himself. You're looking at it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber filled with laughter. It was not cruel laughter. It was amused laughter. A reptilian delegate tapped his claws on its seat. You, it said, you have no natural weapons. Another added, you are physically weaker than many Earth animals. A floating being pulsed bright blue in humor. No armor, no fangs, no poison. The Valkyrie scholar tilted its head. Explain, it said. Elias lowered his hand. He did not look angry. He did not look embarrassed. He only looked steady. We don't need claws, he said. We build tools. The laughter became softer, but it did not fully stop. A council member spoke again. Many species build tools. That does not make them apex predators. Elias nodded. True. He took a small device from his pocket and tapped it. The hologram above changed. The shark disappeared. The tiger faded. The eagle was gone. Now the image showed human cities. Skyscrapers rose into the sky. Bridges crossed wide rivers. Lights covered entire continents at night. Ships moved across oceans. Satellites circled the planet. We live in every climate, Elias said. Hot deserts, frozen lands, deep oceans, high mountains, space. Another alien frowned. Adaptability does not equal dominance. Elias looked up at the rotating earth. On our world, he said, the shark rules the sea. The tiger rules its forest. The eagle rules the sky. He paused. But humans change the sea. We change the forest. We change the sky. The chamber grew quieter. We do not have the strongest bite, Elias continued. We do not run the fastest. We do not see the farthest. He lifted his hand again, but this time he did not point at himself. He pointed at the cities. We think. We plan. We cooperate. We remember. The Valkyrie scholars glowed dim slightly. It was listening closely now. We learn how to farm, Elias said. We learn how to store food. We learn how to heal wounds. We learn how to survive storms. The hologram shifted again. Images of early humans appeared. Small groups around fire. Simple shelters. Stone tools. We were not the strongest, Elias said. Many animals could kill us. Another image appeared. Humans using bows. Then ships. then machines, then rockets. So we changed the rules. No one laughed now. We do not hunt because we are hungry, Elias said. We hunt because we choose to. We do not survive by strength alone. We survive by learning. One alien whispered to another. They reshaped their ecosystem. A different delegate said softly, they became the environment. Elias looked around the chamber. An apex predator, he said, is not just an animal with sharp teeth. It is a species that no other species can remove. Silence spread across the room. We faced ice ages, he continued. We faced disease. We faced natural disasters. We faced each other. He did not smile this time. And we are still here. The hologram zoomed out. Earth became smaller. Around it floated satellites and stations. Human-made objects circling their world. We are not the fastest hunters, Elias said. But nothing hunts us. The words hung in the air. The Valkyrie scholar finally spoke again. Its voice was softer now. So you claim humanity stands at the top of your planet's food chain? Elias nodded once. Yes. A long pause followed. The laughter from earlier felt distant now, almost foolish. The council members looked again at the small, unarmed human standing alone in the center of the chamber. He had no claws, no fangs, no armor, and yet his species had turned a wild world into something shaped by their hands. The galaxy continued to rotate above them, quiet and vast. For the first time since the question was asked, no one in the chamber felt like laughing. The silence after Elias spoke did not last long. The Valkyrie scholar leaned forward again. Its voice was calm, but now it carried something new. Commander Ward, it said, we require clarification. Your claim is unusual. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Several alien researchers activated recording devices. Others adjusted translation lenses. Elias nodded once. He seemed prepared. Of course, he said. Ask. A four-eyed delegate from the desert world of Kara spoke next. On our planet, the apex predator rules the burning plains. It does not rule the frozen poles. It does not live beneath the ocean. Every dominant species has limits. Elias tapped his small device again. The hologram shifted. A map of Earth appeared, colored in many shades. Red for deserts, white for ice, green for forests, blue for oceans. Humans live here, Elias said, pointing at a frozen land near the top of the globe. Images of people in heavy coats appeared, building shelters in snow. And here, the map shifted to a dry desert. Humans walked in the sun, wrapped in cloth to protect their skin. And here, dense jungles filled the air, then high mountains, then floating platforms in the open ocean. The chamber grew quiet again. We live in every major climate zone, Elias said simply. A soft mechanical voice from a floating machine delegate responded. That is technological support, not biological dominance. Elias nodded. Correct. He zoomed the hologram outward. Satellites surrounded the planet. Space stations orbited calmly. We adapt with tools, he said. When we cannot survive naturally, we build what we need. The Valkyrie scholar tilted its head. Many species use tools. Yes, Elias agreed, but we use tools to change environments. The image changed again. Forests were cleared and replaced with farms. Rivers were redirected. Dams appeared. Cities expanded outward like glowing webs. On Earth, Elias said, we did not wait for nature to adjust to us. We adjusted nature to us. A low sound moved through the chamber. Not laughter this time. Something closer to concern. A tall aquatic delegate spoke from within a water-filled sphere. You mean you altered your entire ecosystem? Yes, Elias said. Another voice cut in. At what cost? Elias paused for a second. At a high cost. We learned from it. The council did not miss that answer. The Valkyrie scholar focused on him. Predators hunt prey. They defend territory. They compete with rivals. How do humans eliminate threats? Elias did not show images of battles. He did not show destruction. Instead, he brought up a different display. A small graph appeared, then another, then maps with moving lines. We plan, Elias said. The graph showed disease outbreaks that had been studied and stopped. They showed invasive species controlled before they spread. They showed storms tracked days before landfall. When we see danger, Elias continued, we study it. We predict it. We prepare for it. A reptilian delegate narrowed its eyes. And if preparation fails? Elias looked directly at it. Then we change strategy. The hologram showed early human hunters working together, then engineers designing machines, then scientists in laboratories. We rarely defeat threats with raw strength, Elias said. We defeat them with cooperation. The council began comparing data. On Kareth, the apex predator dominated the burning plains but avoided the deep caves. On Velker Prime, the sky hunter ruled the upper air but could not survive underwater. On the ocean world Delos, the great Leviathan ruled the deep but never touched land. Each apex predator had borders, clear lines where its power ended. The Velkari scholars glowed dim slightly as it studied Earth again. Your species, it said slowly, has no clear territorial limit. No, Elias replied. The hologram zoomed out farther. Earth became smaller. Human ships were shown traveling between planets in their solar system. You left your planet, a delegate whispered. Yes, Elias said, recently, but we will not stop. A heavy silence filled the chamber. A predator that ruled a forest was dangerous. A predator that ruled a planet was something else. Private communications flickered between seats. Alien observers whispered to one another in low frequencies. They are not strongest individually, one message said, but they coordinate. They innovate. They recover from failure. They do not depend on one advantage. The Velkari scholar spoke again, but this time its voice was careful. Commander Ward, you are not describing a predator in the traditional sense. Elias gave a small smile. No, he said, I am not. The council screens filled with more comparisons. Every known apex predator in the galaxy followed a pattern. They evolved to dominate one environment. When conditions changed, they struggled. Some went extinct. Humans, however, showed a different pattern. Ice ages came. Humans adapted. Volcanoes erupted. Humans rebuilt. Diseases spread. Humans created medicine. Wars happened. Humans reorganized and continued. A thin, ancient-looking archivist from a distant system slowly stood. Its voice was soft, but it carried weight. There is a pattern here, it said. All eyes turned toward it. In every recorded case, the archivist continued, civilizations that underestimated adaptability eventually fell. The chamber grew colder. The archivist's gaze moved to Elias. Species that rely on strength can be defeated by greater strength. Species that rely on territory can be displaced. It paused. But a species that adapts faster than it is destroyed. The sentence was left unfinished. No one needed to hear the rest. Elias stood quietly, hands behind his back once more. He had not raised his voice. He had not shown weapons. He had only shown data. And somehow, that was more unsettling, because the council was beginning to understand something troubling. Humans were not simply predators. They were strategists. And history showed that the galaxy had never done well against strategists it failed to take seriously. The chamber had not fully recovered from the data presentation when another voice spoke. It was a military delegate this time, a tall being covered in dark armor plates. Its eyes were sharp and narrow. Commander Ward, it said, data can be shaped to support any claim. Let us test this. Elias did not react with anger. He only nodded. What do you suggest? The armored delegate stepped forward. A simulation. A simple strategic exercise. The Velkari scholar looked interested. State the scenario. The armored delegate's voice carried clearly across the chamber. A superior force approaches Earth. Larger fleet. Stronger weapons. Greater numbers. How would humans respond? A quiet ripple passed through the council. This was no longer biology. This was strategy. Elias folded his hands behind his back again. Very well, he said. We accept. The central hologram changed. Earth appeared again, but this time it was surrounded by a red formation of ships. Sleek alien vessels, larger and more advanced than current human models. A digital voice announced the conditions. Invading fleet outnumbers human defense vessels 3-1. Firepower advantage estimated at 40%. Shielding superiority confirmed. Several delegates seemed satisfied. The advantage was clear. Simulation begins, the system said. The Red Fleet advanced toward Earth in tight formation. Many council members expected a dramatic counterattack. Missiles, laser fire, large explosions lighting up the void. None came. Instead, small blue markers appeared far from Earth. "What are those?" a delegate asked. Elias answered calmly. "Supply nodes." The blue markers moved quietly through space. The invading fleet continued forward, unaware. Within minutes of simulation time, thin lines connected the Red Fleet to distant points in space. Fuel depots, communication relays, support vessels. Blue markers shifted again. One by one, the supply lines flickered. Then they disappeared. A murmur spread across the chamber. The invading fleet slowed slightly. "Minor delay," the armored delegate said. Elias said nothing. The simulation clock accelerated. Hours passed in moments. The Red Fleet attempted to regroup. Smaller ships broke formation to search for interference. Blue markers adjusted again. This time, space around invading ships shifted color. "What is that?" the Valkyrie scholar asked. "Gravitational manipulation," Elias replied. "Artificial distortion fields." The hologram showed the red ships struggling to maintain stable flight paths. Nothing exploded. Nothing shattered. But their formation became uneven. Engines flared as ships tried to correct course. Fuel consumption increased. Communication signals began to lag. The invading fleet fired test shots toward Earth. The beams passed through empty space. The planet was no longer where expected. A collective intake of breath echoed across the chamber. "You move the target?" one delegate asked. "We alter projected coordinates," Elias said. "Strategic misdirection." The Red Fleet attempted to adjust targeting systems. Blue markers moved again. Suddenly, red icons began flashing. "Internal system failures detected," the simulation voice announced. "What failures?" the armored delegate demanded. "Navigation disruptions, energy allocation errors, shield synchronization instability." No human ships were directly attacking. No grand battle filled the hologram. Instead, the invading fleet slowly lost cohesion. Ships drifted slightly off alignment. Support vessels were isolated. Communication lines rerouted through longer paths. Time accelerated again. The Red Fleet now moved unevenly. Several ships had powered down non-essential systems to conserve fuel. Others were waiting for instructions that were delayed or corrupted. The Valkyrie scholar's glow dimmed further. "They are collapsing," it said quietly. The armored delegate clenched its plated hands. "This is sabotage." "Yes," Elias said simply. "But there has been no major engagement," another council member pointed out. Elias nodded. "Correct." The simulation displayed a final phase. Blue markers surrounded the Red Fleet, not in attack formation, but in a loose web. The invading ships found themselves unable to jump to faster-than-light travel. Their exit routes were distorted. Their supplies were nearly gone. The simulation paused. "Invading force operational capacity reduced to 12%, the system announced. Command structure destabilized. Retreat impossible without assistance." Silence filled the chamber. There had been no dramatic explosions, no heroic last stands, no massive fleet battles. Just quiet, careful dismantling. The armored delegate stared at the frozen hologram. "You never engaged directly," it said. "No," Elias replied. "You did not attempt to destroy the superior force." "No. Why?" Elias looked up at the projection of Earth, still calm beneath the Red Fleet. "Because destruction is expensive," he said. "Control is efficient." A low murmur spread across the chamber. The Valkyrie scholar spoke slowly. "You targeted logistics, mobility, Communication. Yes. You allow them to weaken themselves. Yes. A junior delegate whispered to another. They turn strength into a burden. The archivist from earlier leaned forward, eyes narrowed. This is not battle doctrine, it said softly. This is termination strategy. The armored delegate's voice was no longer confident. In real conflict, it said, you would do the same? Elias did not hesitate. If necessary. The simulation faded. The galaxy hologram returned, calm and silent. No applause followed. No laughter. Only unease. At the edge of the chamber, an elderly alien general who had remained silent throughout finally spoke under its breath. They don't fight to win battles, it whispered. Its gaze stayed on the human standing alone in the center. They fight to end threats. And for the first time since the exchange began, several members of the Galactic Council wondered what would happen if humanity ever decided they were one. The chamber did not return to its earlier mood. The laughter from the first question now felt distant, almost foolish. Delegates who had once smiled were quiet. Screens around the hall remained active, replaying fragments of Earth's data. The Valkyrie scholar who had first asked about the apex predator did not sit back down. Instead, it requested full historical access. Display major extinction events on Earth, it said. The hologram changed. An ancient timeline appeared. Asteroid impacts. Supervolcano eruptions. Global ice ages. Pandemics. Mass extinctions that erased dominant species from the planet. The Valkyrie scholar watched carefully. Show survival percentages by species class. It instructed. Data scrolled across the air. Large predators vanished in several extinction waves. Specialized hunters disappeared when climates shifted. Dominant creatures fell when their environments changed too quickly. But one species line continued. Small at first, fragile, then slowly rising. Humans. The scholar adjusted its glow to a softer tone as it studied deeper. Display Ice Age survival patterns. Images filled the chamber. Frozen continents. Thick ice covering vast lands. Animals struggling to survive the cold. Humans were there too, building shelters, wearing animal skins, using fire. They should not have survived, one delegate whispered. Their biology is not optimized for extreme cold. Elias spoke quietly from the center. No, it isn't. The scholar continued. Display major natural disasters. The hologram shifted again. Hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, wildfires, cities damaged, cities rebuilt, stronger structures rising where weaker ones once stood. The Valkyrie scholar began to understand something uncomfortable. These events would have ended most apex species, it said slowly. Elias nodded. They ended many of ours, he said, but not all of us. Another timeline appeared. Pandemics, global disease outbreaks. Human populations dropped sharply, then rose again. Medical knowledge increased. Technology advanced. Each crisis seemed to push the line higher instead of ending it. The realization began to spread through the chamber without words. On many worlds, the strongest species ruled until something stronger replaced them. On Earth, the dominant species kept changing the rules. A desert delegate leaned toward a neighbor and whispered, they improve after catastrophe. The Valkyrie scholar turned to face Elias again. Apex predator, it said thoughtfully, does not mean strongest. The chamber waited. It means the one that remains. No one argued. Elias did not look proud. He did not look triumphant. He simply stood. We were not always at the top, he said. For most of our history, we were prey. The words caught attention. You were hunted? A delegate asked. Yes, Elias replied. By larger animals. By disease. By hunger. By each other. The scholar's glow dimmed in concentration. And yet you endured. Yes. How? Elias took a slow breath. We learned. We cooperated. We planned beyond the present. The chamber was silent enough to hear the faint hum of translation devices. We are dangerous, Elias continued, because we endure, not because we attack. The words settled heavily. Many species in the Council had built powerful fleets. Many had strong natural defenses, but few had histories filled with repeated near collapse followed by growth. The archivist who had spoken earlier accessed its own records. Cross-reference, it said, civilizations that underestimated adaptive species. The results appeared in cold numbers. Several advanced empires had fallen not to brute force, but to opponents who adapted faster. Opponents who survived initial defeat. Opponents who learned from mistakes. The archivist's voice became grave. Adaptability has historically been the most decisive trait in long-term survival. The Valkyrie scholar turned back to its console. Reclassify humanity, it said. A large display appeared in the center of the chamber. Species classification. Human. Status. Emerging interstellar. Dominance category. Planetary. The scholar hesitated before adding a final line. Dominance basis. Strategic adaptation and endurance. A quiet wave of approval moved through the chamber. No applause, just acceptance. Mockery had faded. In its place was something closer to respect. Elias remained still as the final classification was recorded. He had not threatened them. He had not raised his voice. He had only told the truth. The galaxy rotated slowly above them. For the first time, the Council did not see a small, soft-bodied creature standing alone. They saw a species that had survived ice, fire, hunger, and itself. A species that had learned from failure instead of collapsing under it. A species that did not need to dominate loudly, because it simply remained. Then, from the upper-tier seats, a younger delegate stood. Its voice was not fearful, only curious. If humanity is your planet's apex predator, it paused. And if you are now leaving your planet, the chamber grew still again. The question hung in the air, simple and direct. What happens, the junior delegate asked, when an apex predator no longer has borders? The junior delegate's question did not fade. It remained in the air, heavy and clear. If you are your world's apex predator, why aren't you conquering ours? No one moved. No one whispered. Even the softness of the chamber seemed quieter. All eyes turned to Commander Elias Ward. He did not answer immediately. He looked up at the slow rotation of the galaxy above them. Hundreds of billions of stars. Thousands of known civilizations. Infinite possibility. Then he looked back at the Council. Because predators don't hunt without reason, he said calmly. The words were simple, clear, and we've learned the cost of doing so. A few delegates shifted in their seats. The armored military delegate spoke first. Cost? You have demonstrated the ability to dismantle superior forces. You have shown planetary dominance. Why stop there? Elias clasped his hands behind his back again. On Earth, he said, we once hunted without restraint. The hologram changed. Forests shrank. Animal populations dropped. Oceans darkened. Human cities expanded without limits. We believed growth was survival, Elias continued. We believed power was safety. He paused. We were wrong. The Valkyrie scholar watched carefully. Explain. When predators overhunt, Elias said, they destroy their own food source. When species take more than the ecosystem can support, collapse follows. Images shifted again. Economic crashes. Environmental disasters. Wars between human nations. We nearly ended ourselves more than once, Elias said quietly. A low murmur spread through the chamber. You fought your own species? A delegate asked. Yes. And survived? Barely, Elias answered. He did not hide it. He did not glorify it. We learned that strength without restraint destroys everything around it, including the one who holds it. The archivist recorded every word. The junior delegate leaned forward. But now you are stronger, more advanced. Why not expand aggressively while you can? Elias gave a small, steady smile. Because we evolved past survival obsession. The chamber remained silent. For most of our history, he continued, we fought to survive. For food, for land, for safety. But once survival was no longer the only goal, we had a choice. The hologram showed humans cooperating across nations, sharing research, building global systems. We realize that intelligence means responsibility, Elias said. If you understand the consequences of your actions, you cannot pretend you do not. The Valkyrie scholar's glow softened again. You are saying, it said slowly, that conquest is inefficient. Yes, Elias replied, and unstable. He gestured lightly toward the galaxy projection. You all have your own ecosystems, your own cultures, your own histories. Conquest would create resistance. Resistance would create instability. Instability would create conflict. And conflict would weaken you, the armored delegate finished. Elias nodded. We prefer stability. A quiet understanding began to form. On many worlds, apex predators ruled because nothing could challenge them. But humans had learned that ruling everything was not the same as sustaining it. The archivist accessed ancient galactic records again. Civilizations that pursued unchecked expansion, it said, collapsed within predictable time frames. Yes, Elias said softly. We study that too. The junior delegate asked one final question. So you choose not to conquer? Elias met its gaze. We choose cooperation first. Trade, knowledge exchange, mutual defense. And if threatened, the armored delegate asked. The chamber grew tense again. Elias did not raise his voice. If threatened, he said, we respond. No boast, no threat, just fact. The Valkyrie scholar turned to its console once more. Update official classification. It instructed. The display in the center of the chamber changed. Species, human. Status, interstellar. Classification, apex strategic species. A second line appeared beneath it. Primary trait, endurance with restraint. The record was sealed. No cheers followed. No celebration. Just a quiet acceptance that humanity was not what many at first assumed. Elias looked around the chamber one last time. We are not the strongest creatures in the galaxy, he said. But we endure, and we learn. He glanced briefly at the stars above. And we prefer neighbors to enemies. The council remained still as he finished. The meeting had begun with amusement. It ended with understanding. The galaxy did not fear when the human smiled. It feared that he never raised his voice.